Good morning. I'm here today with Nate Armstrong, CAL FIRE's San Mateo, Santa Cruz Unit Chief. This is the first of a series of videos on our Pajaro Dunes Fire Station and the assessment election, which is upcoming. So, Nate, the question that's on everyone's mind is, what happens if this assessment election does not pass?
In a nutshell, and I'll go longer, but in a nutshell, Pajaro Dunes CSA 4, which pays for the fire protection for Pajaro Dunes, would essentially be out of money if this assessment election doesn't pass. And where we sit today, traditionally, that has been a two-person engine company there at the Pajaro Dunes station. And it's a single budget. So that single budget, it pays for the station, it pays for the fire equipment, it pays for the personnel there, and so forth. And that those expenditures have slowly been exceeding the revenues for the last few years. So where we're sitting today, we just purchased the new fire engine in 2021. That was a big chunk of the funds for the fire department, but it was a needed purchase. The good thing on that, we won't see that for another 10 or 12 years, but we need to start to build that back up. Anyway, the building of fund balance aside, back to your question is, we would be out of money this year. We balanced the budget or in the process of that, but we have the funds to balance the budget for fiscal year 24-25 barely. And what that is going to be doing is the last bit of fund balance that we do have, which is that leftover money for major building repairs or major repairs to the fire apparatus and so forth. We're going to be down to pretty much no fund balance just to pay for the staffing and everything that we need to for fiscal year 24-25. That puts us in a position for 25-26, meaning July 1st of 2025, where I do not believe that we would have the funding to staff the fire station anymore, even with today's staffing level. So sorry for the long answer, but the long answer is the short answer is I think we will run out of money this year. The long answer is the rest of that kind of the explanation and where we go from there.
Right. So it sounds like what you're saying is we could get by with two people on the engine, not doing any maintenance, but we could squeak by through about June of 2025. So this next fiscal year, you could squeeze through. But beyond that, there isn't enough money to pay two people to be on the engine even.
That's correct. And that's based off of what we know today. And the only reason I mention that is the current contract between the CAL FIRE firefighters, the rank and file folks that work at the station, their current memorandum of understanding with Cal HR, California's Human Resources Department, that expires on July 1st. And they are currently in negotiations for a new contract. In those negotiations is when you typically see salary raises and so on and so forth. The only reason I bring that up is, who knows, this video might live in an archive, but anybody watching it today is probably fairly familiar with the California budget and what's going on there. I don't foresee a large, if any, salary increase for the firefighters this year. But if they did receive anything more than about 2%, then we would probably be in the red just for this fiscal year without the passing of the ballot measure as well.
Understand. So if it doesn't pass and we're out of money by June of 2026, what happens? Can the station operate with just half time, 4 days a week or something like that?
It's a good question. I don't want to say absolutely no, but I'm about 90 5% sure that we could not, that CAL FIRE could not do that. There, just because there's standards in our cooperative agreements and so forth, and we don't do, essentially what you're asking is part-time, and we don't do that. It has to be constant staffing 24/7, 365 for if nothing else, for our operational capabilities. So that, to answer your question, we wouldn't be able to staff that station any less than full-time.
Understand. That doesn't sound ideal to me. Um, I we've talked in the past about the planned unit development permits that Pajaro Dunes North and South have that allowed this development to be built, which required that there be a fire department here. And I don't think anybody really knows what would happen if it looked like the station was going to close down. Would the county make some kind of requirement of the associations? I don't know the answer to that. That's going to get kind of complicated. If that is the answer, then people still end up paying the assessment. They just pay it differently and not
Through
on
a different
tax lots.
avenue.
That's going to be complicated.
Yeah.
Sounds like we'd have a year to figure that out, maybe. But so if our station is closed and somebody at Pajaro Dunes has a fire in their house, neighbor calls 911, what would happen? Who's going to come here and get water on the fire?
The first closest due engine would be from Watsonville Station 2, which is right by the airport, on airport, for folks that know. And so I would say that's about a 8, depending on the amount of time for them to get going and everything. And also if they're in quarters, because Watsonville is one of the busier fire departments in the county. 8 to 10 minute response time just to the gates, probably, from Watsonville Station 2. And then that second due engine would either be the CAL FIRE engine from Corralito Station. So you're looking at about 15 to 16 minutes. Or Central's, I don't know, they've renumbered their department, but the La Selva engine from La Selva Beach engine from Central Fire District, and it's about the same, believe it or not, response time as Corralitos, just because of the roads. So you're looking at about 15 to 16 minutes for them as well, I believe. So quite the long response, and that's just to the gates. That's not taking into effect how deep into, especially for like Pajaro Dunes South.
Right. Where you're a little bit further away from a road surface. How I'm hoping you know the answer to these questions off the top
I'm
of your
hoping I
head,
know
but
that answer to the
if
questions too.
there's an actual kitchen fire, if there's a kitchen fire and it goes unaddressed, I've heard that every minute it can double in size. I imagine that depends on conditions. Is it windy and that's fueling it? What kind of other fuel source is available?
Yeah. Generally speaking, it is a rule of thumb that they say fire doubles in size every minute. Was that the
15 minutes?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm sorry I'm not picking up on it. Yeah, it
Oh,
could be quite the
okay,
size
great.
if you're talking response more than 10 minutes.
Right. And if somebody's having a significant medical issue, I've heard something about ambulance in Santa Cruz County, and I'm not sure that's true, but at any given time, there are only about 2 ambulance trucks out on streets or are available. Is that about right?
Yeah, I couldn't speak to their exact numbers. I know that generally speaking, on most days, AMR is the provider for the ambulance service in the county. And I believe their standard daily deployment is about 9 to 10 ambulances in the county. Now, where you hear about them getting, they drop in availability if all those ambulances are committed to, incidents. And so you will have times that there are no ambulances available in the county because they're either transporting somebody to the hospital, waiting to get out of the hospital, and so forth. The interesting thing is, I'm sure any folks residents of Pajaro Dunes are familiar enough with kind of being on the little island of traffic in the South County. And so those traffic patterns play a significant role at different times of day to the ambulance and fire engine availability. To be honest, so those South County ambulances, the ones that are staged in Watsonville and Aptos, are sometimes they are our only one because you aren't going to get anything coming from the San Lorenzo Valley at 4 in the afternoon. So to your point,
Right.
yeah, they get drawn down. Those levels fluctuate throughout the day, but that is why you typically, for almost anywhere in the county, you will almost always have a fire engine arrive at your home before the ambulance because there's a lot more of the fire engines. They're placed to be to people's residences sooner than the ambulances are.
Right. So you can start administering first aid or whatever needs to happen before an
Correct.
ambulance is actually there to take someone away. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, Nate. I appreciate it. And I know our homeowners appreciate the opportunity to hear directly from you. And everyone, come back soon and you'll see video number 2 of my interviews with Nate Armstrong. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Nate.